This is why you should never play with the Ouija board. Before I begin, check out my other socials here and make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'm always posting story times there. Just posted a new one. Also, thank you so much, Marissa, for sending in this story. So this story actually happened earlier this year, and Marissa said it all took place at her aunt's house in Mexico. During winter break, Marissa went down to visit her cousins, and like always, they wanted to make every trip they spent together memorable. She said her and her cousins rarely see each other, and because it was just her traveling down to Mexico, she didn't have to worry about her parents being down her back and nagging about every little thing. Marissa said when she arrived at her aunt's house, she was brought upstairs to the guest room where she set up her bed and got comfortable. After settling in, she went down to her cousin Sophia's room, where they discussed what activities and things they'll be doing for her winter break. One of the activities being to play with the Ouija board. Marissa said when she heard her cousin Sophia utter those words out of her mouth, she thought that she was joking, but no, she was for real. Sophia even told Marissa to not tell her own parents and not to tell Sophia's parents that they were playing this game. The only good thing about this was that Marissa said they saved this game for last. Fast forward, it's 2 days before Marissa's winter break ends, and both the girls already got through all the activities, which means the last thing on the list to do was play the Ouija board. Marissa said as soon as nighttime hit, her stomach dropped to the floor because she knew her cousin Sophia would finally want to play. Marissa said at around 12:30 a.m. while everyone was asleep, Sophia snuck into Marissa's room where she was asleep with the game. Sophia woke Marissa up, and in the moment, Marissa said she wanted to snitch on Sophia, but she knew Sophia would never forgive her. Marissa said Sophia ended up telling her that the only reason why she wanted to play this game was to see if she could contact her brother that recently passed away. This made Marissa feel horrible, and seeing Sophia cry made her agree to play the game. Both girls proceeded to sit on the bed, open up the game, read the rules, and began playing. Marissa said while they were playing, she thought it was all fake until she felt a really cold chill go down her spine when both girls were asking the spirit questions. Marissa even said at one point it felt as if someone was behind her, hovering over her shoulder. While they were playing, the spirit ended up revealing that it was Sophia's brother, and after confirming with very hard questions, Marissa said Sophia began to sob. Sophia's sobbing caused her to let go the pointer on the board, which users aren't supposed to do. Because her cousin began to cry uncontrollably, Marissa had no choice but to let go of the board and comfort her. Marissa said while she held Sophia in her arms, the light began to flicker on and off. This freaked Marissa out, but Sophia thought it was all a sign from her brother. Sophia began to ask the spirit to give them more signs if her brother was in the room. After a few seconds, both girls heard a slight knock from the window, which caused Sophia to cry even more, but Marissa felt very, very uneasy. Time passed, and the girls decided to finally go to sleep and put away the game. Marissa said putting away the game was the biggest mistake both girls ever made, and that being because they did not follow the rules properly and didn't say goodbye to the spirit that they were in contact with. Now, this is where it gets really, really weird. Marissa said while she was sleeping at around 4 a.m., she was awoken by a harsh scream coming from a few rooms down, which happened to be her cousin's room. Marissa said the whole entire house woke up and rushed over to Sophia's room, where she was in there hysterically crying. Sophia ended up telling everyone that it was just a nightmare and not to worry. Marissa knew that that definitely wasn't it and it had to be something else, but because they made the promise to not tell their parents, she had to make up that lie. The morning of, Sophia explained to Marissa everything that happened yesterday night, and she ended up bursting into tears, explaining how the whole time that they were playing the game, thinking that it was her brother in the room with them, it wasn't him. It was a whole entire different entity. Marissa said whatever crossed over that night showed up in Sophia's room and stood beside her bed, staring down at her with hungry eyes. This made Marissa feel uneasy, but she knew that after today, she would not be there. She'd be back at home, safe and sound. Fast forward that night, both girls decided to sleep in the same exact room, and that being Marissa's guest room. Both girls wanted to make sure that this all just wasn't in their heads, and if something actually did happen, at least there would be witnesses. Marissa said at around 4 a.m. again, she was awoken by the sound of something knocking on the closet door. She quickly shook Sophia to wake up, and both girls sat up listening to the sound of whatever was happening behind that door. Marissa said both of them were petrified and held onto each other for safety. She said after a while, the knocking stopped, but then that's when they heard the doorknob of the closet door starting to turn. The door proceeded to slowly creak open, and before the two girls even allowed whatever it was behind that door to come out, they both screamed out of fear. This woke the whole house up once again, and Marissa said her aunt burst through the door. Marissa said unfortunately she did end up snitching and told her aunt everything that they did and what they were doing. Let's just say both of them got Marissa said that morning was her flight back home, and before she left for the airport, her aunt was blessing the house and even called over multiple priests to the home. Marissa also said when she arrived home, she called her cousin, and that's when she revealed that they were supposed to say goodbye at the end. They were also supposed to dispose of the game, which they never did. They just put it away and went to sleep. When I asked Marissa if she ever encountered the spirit after coming back home, she told me that she hasn't, but she revealed her cousin has been tormented by the spirit every single night at 4 a.m. ever since.
Tonight's true scary story is one of the most disturbing stories that I have ever gotten, and this is exactly why you do not play with Ouija boards, like tenfold. If this doesn't convince you, I honestly don't know what will. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to subscribe to my The link is in my link tree in my bio, where I tell scarier stories and longer versions of stories. And tonight I already told a story that you guys have not yet heard on here. Also guys, send me your true scary stories. My email is in my bio. So tonight's submitter's name is Dolly, and Dolly grew up in El Monte, California, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that right. Back when Dolly was 12 years old, her little sister brought home a makeshift Ouija board. It was homemade. Dolly is now 38 years old. Now while they're playing this game, they're asking it basic questions like, what's your name? How long have you been here? It responded to her and all of her siblings except for her sister Karina. For some reason, this entity did not like her sister Karina. Now she doesn't remember the name that the entity gave them, but it did like their brother, and it actually told their brother that it wanted him to meet them at a corner of a street in Los Angeles, a specific corner, and they wanted him to meet them at a specific date. Yes, the entity wanted to meet up with the brother. Now she doesn't remember the name of the streets or the specific date, but she does know that the date was not too far from that day. Entity said that it would be disguised as a woman with red hair, red lipstick, and a red dress. It also told them that if he didn't show up, it was going to unalive him at the age of 33 years old. Now the brother didn't end up going. Now they kept asking the board questions after this, when all of a sudden their other brother walks into the room and says, if you guys keep playing this game, I'm going to tell dad what you're doing. As soon as he closed the door and walked away, the board started moving on its own, and it spelled out fix him, as in like So their dad came in after that and told them that they needed to burn the board, so they did burn the board. And after that, she said that some nights she would fall asleep and she would wake up and she would feel like she was being watched. Just this awful feeling. And then she looks around the room and she sees her two sisters and her brother Joe. She shared a room with them. Now she's looking around the room and she's scanning it because she's really feeling this overwhelming feeling of being watched, when all of a sudden she sees this dark shadow man in the corner of her room. She is absolutely terrified. She is just sitting there when all of a sudden she feels her bed just go down, as if something was sitting down on the bed by her feet. This scares the ever-loving out of her. So she wakes up her sister Wendy and she's like, Wendy, someone is in the room. So Wendy gets up and goes to turn on the light, but the light won't turn on. So she starts freaking out and she wakes up her brother Joe. And her brother Joe gets up and he checks the room, and there is nobody in that room except for them. So Dolly tells her brother what happened and about how she saw the shadow man and how like the light wouldn't turn on. So he goes over and he checks the light, and the light bulb was unscrewed a little bit. So he screws it back on and the light turns back on. At this point they are scared. So they wake up their parents and they tell their parents what they saw. So they go into the kitchen and they see muddy footprints in the kitchen and the window open. Apparently after that, they were always finding footprints in their backyard, and this was an incredibly scary time for them. Now fast forward a couple years later, and her brother moved to Tijuana, her brother Joe, when they get a phone call when he is 33 years old that he had been unalived at 33 years old. Now this is obviously so devastating, and she said that she has never touched a Ouija board ever again since she was 12 years old. She also said that she has had many other scary things happen to her, and that if we would like to know, to drop it in the comments and she will tell us more scary stories. This story was incredibly sad, but guys, this is exactly why you do not play with Ouija boards, especially if you do not know what you are doing. They are dangerous. You never know who you are talking to, and like, look what happened. Like, that is insane. Do you think that this was a coincidence, or do you think that they were unalived by that entity? Maybe that entity possessed someone, because he was like, so someone unalived him, and who knows, maybe the entity possessed that person. You just don't ever know. I want to know what your thoughts are, you guys. What do you think about this story? What do you think happened here? She would also like to know. Dolly, I am so incredibly sorry that this happened to your brother. That is absolutely heart-wrenching. I hope that you have healed from this, and that you are happy, and that you have found some peace in some way. A couple things before we go, I'm going to do a shout out. First of all, Jay, I did a shout out for you on my, go check it out. And also Laura, your username is Mendoza Girl. Thank you so much for sharing my videos and for commenting and watching them all the time and being so supportive. I absolutely appreciate that so much. Guys, sharing my videos right now is what is going to get me out of this stupid restriction. So if you could do that for me, I would really appreciate it, but don't feel pressured to do it. I only want you to do it if you want to do it, if you like my content. I love every single one of you guys so much. I can't wait to get to all of your names. I promise you I will. I also have to do another shout out to Beth, who made me this necklace. She literally made it handmade herself. There's a protective stone in the middle right there. I told her exactly what I wanted and she made it handmade. This is also another one that she made for me, which is absolutely beautiful. Like, I'm obsessed. Thank you so much. That was the nicest thing ever. She is a small business, you guys. If you want to support her, I'm going to put her tag in the description and she will hand make you whatever you want. Now, other than that, you guys, normally I say have a spooky night and I tell you guys to stay safe. But because of the severity of this situation in this video and how sad it is, I don't feel it's appropriate to say have a spooky night. So I'm just going to tell you, please have a safe night and just be careful out there, okay? And I love you guys so much. I would not have this channel without you. You mean so much to me. I will see you guys in the next one.
If you're laying in bed and you actually want to sleep tonight, then you should skip this. For the rest of us who like scaring the shit out of ourselves, welcome. When I was a kid, my best friend asked a Ouija board how old she was going to be when she died. Okay, spoiler, it told her 22. Probably wondering, did she die at 22? I'm going to tell you a story that only 3 people know. Well, 2, because one of them is dead. This story starts about 20 years ago when Christina and I were about 12. We were inseparable and we used to hang out with her older sister all the time. We were at their house a lot. It looked like a normal suburban house on the outside, but I swear you walked in and it was like a portal to the underworld. This house scared the absolute shit out of me. I would hear screams coming from the attic and I would look down this long, dark, creepy hallway, see dark figures like motioning up when I'm trying to sleep at night. To make matters worse, we would sit in her room with the lights dim, pull out the Ouija board and play all the time. But here's the thing, it only ever worked for Christina. It was like she had some weird connection to it. Naturally, her sister and I always thought this was fake and she was just doing it for attention because it would move so fast all over the place, telling us everything. Never worked when we did it alone, so we were a little bit suspicious. Whatever ghost was on the other side of this had diarrhea of the mouth. This was not like you see on the horror movies where it's like, oh, this is slowly moving to yes or no. Like, no, this was like a T9 texting expert ghost that word vomited constantly. So one day we had just finished watching Big Fish, and in that movie there is this creepy old witch and you can ask her how old you're going to be when you die. Christina loved this idea. Next thing you know, she's pulling out the Ouija board and immediately asking, how old am I going to be when I die? Planchette slowly starts to move towards the numbers and it hovers over the 2. And then it takes a little bit of a movement back and comes right back to the 2. Christina didn't even skip a beat. She grabs her red notebook that she wrote down all of the answers the Ouija board said in it, wrote down, age I'm going to die, 22. Completely calm. Little did we know, something was set in motion and some weird shit started happening for the next 10 years. About a year after the Ouija board incident, Christina's middle school boyfriend tragically died. He was babysitting his 3-year-old little sister, hanging a rope swing for her in the backyard. The parents got home, found the little girl screaming in the backyard, looking at her brother hanging by the tree. He accidentally got tangled in the rope and hung himself. He had been dead for about 3 hours. While Christina was upset about this, she wasn't hysterical, more so distant. And she said to me, I think I'm gonna see him again soon. I just don't see myself growing old. I can't be that upset about it because something like that might happen to me. For the sake of being able to sleep at night, I wrote off a lot of these things. Christina and I grew apart over the years. A couple of other creepy things happened here and there, but for the most part, I think she had a pretty normal life. She got a job, got a fiance, seemed pretty happy from what I could tell. So now we're about 21 and Christina's wedding is coming up. I didn't go to the wedding, but I saw this footage later. Christina's standing at the altar, all smiles, having just been married, trying to take photos with her family. Softly in the background, you hear a little girl singing the Itsy Bitsy Spider. Christina yells super loudly, Kenna, it's time to take photos. And the camera just slowly pans left. And then you get a great view of this beautiful little flower girl sitting in a pew, holding a Bible upside down, singing the Itsy Bitsy Spider. She shuts the Bible, takes a couple of steps towards the aisle, and slowly walks forward. I shit you not, this 3-year-old looks up at this bride and says, Christina, are you gonna die soon? Freaked out when she heard this, which Would be a normal response, but I heard her talk about death so many times as a teenager and just how it didn't faze her that it was a little bit odd to hear her talking about it like this. I really think it's because she was 5 months pregnant. Things had changed for her. About a year after the wedding, Christina was at a cabin with her family in the mountains, having some celebration. Everyone was there, including her newborn son. It seemed like one of those days where nothing could go wrong. Her family always had a four-wheeler that we would take around the mountains and have a really good time on. At some point in the afternoon, her and a friend decided to take it out for a ride. But that day, something was different. As they rode through the trails, everything seemed all right until Christina screamed. "The brakes aren't working." They flew off of a cliff. Both of them were rushed to the hospital. Christina didn't make it. She died on the way there. 22.
Okay, gather around because the story might make you think twice about ever messing with the supernatural. I promise you guys my paranormal experiences, and I already skipped a day, so I already broke a promise. So I'm gonna remake this promise doing it now. I'm gonna stop cleaning, hence why I look a mess, and I'm gonna tell you the story so I can fulfill my promise, okay? I don't know how I feel about my glasses on right now, so let's get into it. Okay, so moving past the dolls, this was my first experience with a Ouija board. So when I was about 10 years old, my mom has always told me never to fuck with a Ouija board, okay? And she would explain to me like it opens the doors to presence we don't really need. And as like a child, you know, you don't really understand what that means, you know? Honestly, growing up, I was scared of my mom. Not because she was like abusive or anything, but my mom's just a hardcore bitch and she don't fuck around. Every time I fucked around, I found out, you know? So yeah, we don't play with mama, but we love her to death. She's my best friend. Besides the point, okay? When I was about 10 years old, I was at a sleepover with one of my friends. We're gonna call her Ruby, okay? And during the sleepover, it was me, her, and then 5 other girls, and we stayed in the RV that was behind her house. And her parents, of course, stayed in the house. We were having a blast, okay? We were eating pizza, we were playing games, we were laughing, living our best 10-year-old life, okay? We're having a great time, and then pause. One of the other girls pulls a Ouija board out of her bag. When she pulled out the Ouija board, everybody else was hype as fuck. Not me. No, ma'am. My gut was already screaming, don't do it. This is a bad idea. Bad idea. Bad idea. I held true and made my mama proud, okay? I was like, I'm not touching that. And of course, I got called a chicken, like, you're such a chicken, like, you're so scared. First of all, bitch, I'm not the one who's got issues. Just kidding, I kinda do. Of course, they start asking the board, like, is anyone there? Hello, are you here? Do you want to speak with us? Hello. For a few minutes, there was no answer. But suddenly, the planchette moves to yes. My heart dropped, okay? And all these girls are like, stop it, Ruby, stop moving it. And Ruby's like, I'm not moving it. And all the girls are like, okay, someone's moving it. But everyone's like, I'm not moving it, I'm not moving it, I'm not moving it, I'm not moving it. And here I am. Ruby then asked, what is your name? And the silence was so loud. But then Ruby was feeling, this girl was feeling brave, okay? She starts taunting this spirit. Oh, are you scared? Just tell us your name, you coward. And that is where the darkness started, bitch. The air in the RV got so thick. Then, okay, I got chills already. The planchette starts moving frantically, okay? And I'm talking like figure 8 frantically, literally figure 8ing, bitch. I mean like this, non-stop, okay? I have, look, can you see it? I got fucking chills, bro. I don't like it. Kind of don't want to say out loud what it spelled, so I'm gonna write it down. Or maybe that's worse. I don't know. I'm gonna use sign language. And I'm gonna do it y'all's way. Did you catch that? Ruby laughed at this name and said, what kind of name is that? And I felt an instant chill run down my spine. The atmosphere just shifted, and then literally the lights just turn off. Of course, we all start fucking screaming. Like, what else are you gonna fucking do in a situation like that? I want to scream right now. Oh my God. I mean, the lights were out for probably 45 seconds until they just turned back on. And it wasn't like somebody just like flipped the power. I mean, those things flickered and then turned the fuck off. When I looked at Ruby, her eyes were rolled in the back of her head and she was completely unresponsive. Ugh. You know, me and the other girls, like, we're shaking her and we're like, Ruby, 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 trying to get her to snap back into whatever fucking realm she's in. And right after that, she just fell backwards and it looked like she was sleeping. And me and the other girls are just like, and we're sitting here thinking like this shit's a prank, you know? I know something you don't. I know something you will never. Shut up. The tension was just so unbearable. Like, all the girls were like, okay, yeah, we're going to sleep. Me, I barely slept, okay? I knew something was not right, okay? I slept for maybe an hour. The next morning, I felt off. I was the first one to get up. I'm looking around, and Ruby, nowhere to be found. So I woke everyone up, and I'm like, yo, dude, do you know where Ruby went? They're like, no. What the fuck? Okay, so maybe, you know, she went inside. Who knows? So we all are like freaking out, kind of like, where is she after what just happened last night? The fuck? And we go into her house. Oh my God, bro, chills. We go into her house and we're asking her mom, like, hey, do you know where Ruby is? And her mom's face went blank. Like, what do you mean, do I know where Ruby is? We're like, she didn't come inside, right? And her mom's like, no. So we all take off outside and we're screaming like, Ruby, Ruby, where are you? Where are you, bitch? They lived on a lot of land. And behind the RV, we start walking, and there this bitch is. She's laying down in the grass, face down. Her mom goes to grab her, and she's like kind of shaking her, like, Ruby, wake up, because she's breathing. Ruby starts screaming to the top of her fucking lungs, okay? That scream is something I will never get out of my head. It's, yeah, no. So after she screamed, Daddy hears it. Ew, that was so southern, what the fuck? Her dad hears her scream. And he comes running out. He's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And she's not saying anything, okay? So her mom, scared as fuck, as she should be, like the rest of us, okay? She goes inside and she calls our parents to come pick us up. Boom. And keep in mind, this was a time, like, I didn't have a cell phone. I don't think any of us held a cell phone at 10. I don't know. The times are changing. It's weird. I personally did not have a cell phone. So when I was keeping up with friends, it was using the house phone to contact them, okay? Like, yeah, we had internet, but Facebook wasn't a thing. We didn't have any way to, like, contact her, like, hey, are you okay? Like, it was just, nobody heard from her and nobody called her. The scariest part of this, it gets worse, unfortunately. She didn't return back to school the rest of the year, okay? We're probably halfway through the year. Bro, I cannot deny the fucking chills. The next year, Ruby comes back to school. But it's not fucking Ruby, bitch. I barely recognized her, and I haven't spoken to her in, what, 6-7 months, right? Her eyes just looked off. They were very hollow. Her skin was pale as shit. No, I'm not talking about Edward. Sorry. There was something about her that just made me feel very unsettled. Like, it's so hard to describe that feeling. It was like an unsettling darkness. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, I didn't feel right, you know, and she didn't look right. But the creepiest part of all of this, I have tried to search for this girl, and you know me, bitch. You give me a name, background, where you live, your phone number, all of your email addresses, who you're related to, bitch, I will find everything, okay? I found nothing on her. Literally nothing. It's literally like she vanished. I can't find her. No Facebook, no Instagram, no Google, no True People Search, no arrest. Like, it's like she never fucking existed. I'm going to say, without a doubt in my mind, I watched that bitch get possessed, okay? And like, what you see on TV, bitch, what you see on TV shows, movies, like, it's very, I don't know. I think something's telling me not to talk about this anymore. Heed my warning. Don't fuck with the Ouija board. And I know for some people they say, oh, it doesn't work. I don't know what to tell you, okay? But no. And if you know anything about the person that she was speaking with through the Ouija board, you know now, because as a kid, I didn't know what the fuck that was, who the fuck that was, what it meant. Now that I know that, just don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't do it. What if you open a door to something that never wanted to be found? I just think some spirits are better left undisturbed. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Now, you already know I love haunted shit, but I have gotten chills telling this whole entire story. My heat is on in this house, and I'm gonna stop talking about it, and I'm gonna get off. Love y'all, bye.
Not heard about the 28 girls that were hospitalized after using a Ouija board?
Bruh, I'm breaking my kid code of silence with this one, but here's a quick story time on playing the Ouija board in the Bronx. It's 1995, 1996. We don't got cell phones. The hangout spot is Vlad's apartment. Vlad's apartment got people in and out at all times, day and night. There's a Ouija board in the crib. I decided to play with it. A lot of us are playing with it. This is going on day after day after day. So we're talking to all these different spirits. There's one spirit named Frank. He identifies himself and he tells us his story about how he got moved out in the Bronx and he was from 146th Street. The dude, he gave us vivid details down to like phone numbers and all that. He asked us to call his family. But this is where it got strange. At some point, Frank decided to show off his spirit skills and would identify people before they'll show up. And that started freaking us out. Like, Frank, we cool, we hear your story, but chill. Because, like, Lou would show up knocking on the door and the board just wrote Lou. Or the board would start reading. Now, this is the part that really got me. There's a dude amongst us. His name was Trauma. His real name was Marlon, but none of us knew that because in the hood, you don't know nobody's name unless you get locked up with them, stop and frisk with them, or you went to school with them. But because that was Vlad's man from another block, we ain't know his real government. So now the board is writing Marlon and Traum shows up. We like, haha, Frank, you're not as good as we thought you was. No, we look at Vlad's face. Vlad's looking back at us with a certain face on us, and I'm already getting scared. He's like, yo, Marlon is Trom's name. Marlon don't know what's going on. He's just walking into this, and the only people holding the board are people who don't know Trom's real name is Mal. At this point, things are happening to people on the block. It's a lot drama and real bad things happening, newspaper-worthy stuff happening amongst like our friends. So we decided to give up this Ouija board. We're like, you know what? This is a little too deep for us. Fast forward a month later, this is where things got really strange for me. I see these two girls come out of building on my block. So all this took place on Creston Avenue on 197. And I lived on Kingsbridge and Morris. So I'm on my way to Morris after a day of being on Creston. And I see these two girls, they walk out the building. Yo, Rich, what's good? What you doing right now? I'm like, nothing. Yo, come in the building. We playing the Ouija board. We're like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to play. We had this whole experience. I'm not with that no more. And she's like, nah, but it's real. It's real. I'm like, trust me. I know it's real. She's like, anyway, so whatever they was going to do, for some reason, I decided, let me ask, what's the spirit's name that they talking to? And so I'm like, yo, legit, what's the name of the spirit you're talking to? Whatever way I asked or whatever. You know what the spirit's name was? Take a wild guess. Shorty's was really talking to Frank on the Ouija board a month later. Anyway, we made a pact like the Goonies to never talk about it again. This is the first time somebody's talking about it in public. It's real, y'all.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely...
So I had a Ouija board in college and did some really bad things. Didn't say goodbye properly, played in a cemetery, slept with it underneath my bed. It ended up needing my house to get a priest. Here's the story.
Sometimes my plants would move like that and nothing was on, no AC, no window, nothing. Goosebumps. Things would move around my room.
Those videos you saw were because the board was in my room underneath my bed. This led to really bad nightmares, to my room smelling like rotten meat, to doors being slammed, to plants flying everywhere. It was just really bad. It got to the point where I needed an exorcist to the house and I needed to provide proof for the Vatican. The Vatican. Yeah, that was a good time. Ended up having a brain injury throughout all of that happening. You could check out my channel for that. And then ended up having to be back at my house and hauntings were still occurring. And then I found out I was pregnant and I got my house blessed beforehand. But yeah, it was not good at all. My friends would come in and not even knowing that there was a Ouija board underneath my bed, they would come in and be like, I don't feel a good vibe in here. Like some of them would even like be sitting on my bed and they'd see the door slam shut. Or like, I remember one time I had a girlfriend over and my crucifix in my room just fell to the floor. Just like crazy things like that. Got to the point where my girlfriend got possessed when we were playing. Now, we didn't know at the time how bad it was and how dangerous it was. We were younger. Now I'm a mom, so I would never do that. I would never let my kid do that. But I didn't know any better. And so we were playing, and this was like one of those times where we were playing for hours. And one of the girls like suffered from, like depression and was definitely unfortunately, like the most vulnerable. And that's when demons like to attack her, the most vulnerable one of the group. And started spelling out her name on the board and started spelling out her neck. Whose neck? We were asking whose neck? And they'd spell out her name. And they kept saying for us to look in the mirror. So they would like type mirror, 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 mirror. And it was like really creepy. And then it got to the point where she like could not breathe. And she was literally like couldn't breathe. And the craziest thing about this was that I knew something was wrong is I loved those two girls that I was with very much. They were like sisters to me. And when I saw this happening, instead of being like, oh my God, are you okay? The craziest thing happened. Instead, I wanted to slap her. I had anger. I was like, shut up, stop. And I remember saying that and not wanting to say it, but it just coming out of me. It was very weird. But like, I wasn't the one that was like really affected, but she, on the other hand, started really choking and then like got out of it, whatever. And because she was choking or anything, we didn't say goodbye. We stopped. I like moved the board out of the way. I'm like, oh my God, she's choking, right? As anyone would do. And I think that's when it got really bad. And that's when we were like, okay, yeah, we need to get rid of this board, like ASAP. And so we brought it to a park to burn. And mind you, a Ouija board, this one was like the ones from Spirit Halloween, onto the ground. Now, I want to point out that look at that raw crystal, the big one, it's not even moved. I literally put it down the exact spot, and none of the other crystals are moved. They're all in the exact same spot. I was that board. And I covered it in lighter fluid, and it took 2.5 hours to burn. 2.5 hours to burn. Yeah, it was, I get chills. Yeah, it was really not cool. I have a lot more in-depth stories about things that happened to me while the board was underneath my bed, like scary stories that were super creepy, and things like that. So let me know if you want more of those. But yeah, that's my Ouija board story.
This is the first and last time that I've ever played with a Ouija board. I'm going to share my experience and kind of what happened and the creepy stuff that happened during and mostly after. It's possible that most of the things that happen to me are coincidental with just life being life. However, with everything that has kind of happened to me over this past year, ghost-wise, I kind of correlate the two. I mean, if you knock on the devil's door and you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. There is a reason why you're supposed to be educated when talking to the dead, because whenever you call upon the dead and you're completely uneducated and don't know what you're doing, you're essentially calling upon, and anybody could answer, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I fully believe in all of that stuff. I'm very spiritual, so of course at first I was like, no, I'm not even gonna mess with it. Me and my friends had a couple drinks and we were bored, and it wasn't my idea, but I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And it was the three of us, and we asked the typical questions, and we just said, is anybody here? Do you have anything you want to say? And nothing happened. Nothing moved it. I just want to quickly add that there are rules to the Ouija board game. You're supposed to, there's specific rules to taking your fingers on and off. You can't just willingly take it off because you're essentially like opening up the portal or whatever. And I just want to say that one of my friends did take off their hands before saying goodbyes. It wasn't until the following week that I started having very weird dreams. Kind of just like I gave myself bad juju. Out of nowhere, I got diagnosed with epilepsy, even though my brain was completely fine. the worst year of my life, I guess, medical wise, and just really bad coincidences that happened. And my other two people in the friend group who played the board got diagnosed with like wild mental health issues. I'm not going to speak on that because it's not my business to share. Like, we literally got infested with demon sickness. As far as me personally, things started to progress more and more every single week, and I started to hear knocks of threes on my door. It actually was so bad that I had to move. If y'all are new here, then. And then what really freaked me out, and like the tipping point of me actually moving, was like a shadow seen in my video, and it kind of like peeked its head out. And after that, I was horrified, and I moved. Did I awaken something? Did I give myself an attachment? Or was this already going to manifest in some other way because I'm super spiritual and clairvoyant? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but my recommendation is just don't do it. It's not worth it.
So I just seen on my For You page this girl report about 28 women were hospitalized due to using a Ouija board. And that shit triggered a memory. So, story time. It's 2007 or 8. I go over my friend's house. It's a Friday. We're after school. We're hanging out. I remember when I was on my way to her house, I was listening to Paramore's Miseries. So that had to be 2007. I don't know why I'm adding that. I just want y'all to have a little bit more detail. So boom, I go over her house. We're all making strawberry shortcake. I call my mom. I'm like, Ma, I'm going to be at my friend's house till later on tonight. I'll be home in a little while. My mom said, I don't know about that shit, but bring your ass home in a timely manner. I'm like, cool, but it's fall, so you know it gets dark early. And I'm a scary ass bitch, so I'm like, I'm going to be home way before then. The mom goes upstairs because she's tired, so we start to pull out the stuff from the fridge to make the strawberry shortcake. As we do that, as we're washing her hands, she proceeds to pull out a bag that has a game board in it. And this bitch pulls out a brand new Ouija board. I said, bitch, where you get that from? That bitch at a toy store. Little did I know that toy stores actually make those as board games. But I know about that shit because I come from a spiritual family who knows better. So my friend who house we're at, she's like, who wants to play before we do the strawberry shortcake? But of course, everybody else is like, well, let's just try it out. And I'm like, okay, I'll watch. Y'all do it. 20 minutes go by and I'm just waiting for the strawberry shortcake because, bitch, that's my motive for being here. They're doing it and no activity happened. So I'm like, can we finally make the dessert? And they're like, fine, okay. The girl goes to lift up the board to fold it back up and put it in the box. The bottom is black. And when I mean black like it was burnt underneath. Like if you have a candle that's sitting too low underneath something, all the smoke will turn it black. And once again, it was on the table the whole time. We were all watching it. I was watching it. They was touching it. And it was cardboard. So I'm not going to act like it was something that was like solid wood and shit. Like it was brand new. I seen her take it out the wrapping and everything. It wasn't that. So, bitch, I'm all looking like, girl, this shit is too much for me. So, an hour later goes by. We're eating the strawberry shortcake. But when I get nervous or when I just get anxious, I got the feeling like I have to poop even when I don't. TMI. I know, I'm sorry. So, I go to her downstairs bathroom, which is by the back door. And I hear knocking at the door. So, I wash my hands, leave out the bathroom. And I'm like, who's knocking at the door? You know, because I'm not going to open up somebody else's door because this ain't my house. And the girls is like, bitch, we ain't hear nobody. And I'm like, oh, shit, here we go. I go to sit down. 5 minutes later, I hear knocking at the back door. This time, the mom's upstairs. She's like, can somebody answer that fucking door? And the daughter's like, Ma, there's nobody knocking at the door. But I heard it and the mom heard it. I've had a lot of supernatural experiences that have knocking involved in them. She opens up the back door. A cold wind comes in. It was fall. It could have been that. But me? I'm so fucking scared. I leave immediately. Left so fast, I left my house key. So I'm knocking at my front door like, Ma, let me in. My mom opens up the door to let me in. I walk past her and she stops me. She says, come back here real quick. Sorry for the delay. My friend called her. You know when two friends start gossiping, it goes on forever. So anyway, I go up onto the porch, right? And I'm knocking because I left my key at my friend's house. Because when I tell y'all, my ass was out of there. I don't got to get burnt twice to know that a stove is hot. So my mom comes to the door. She opens it up. And I come in past her, right? And I don't know what it is. But you know when you got a psychic, spiritual black mama who comes from a long line of, if your eyes are truly open, the way they can sense shit that the mundane can't is on another level. If you know, you know. So I walk past her, girl, I'm making a beeline for the living room. And she's like, come back here. I stop and turn around because I think I'm probably in trouble for something because it's always something. She says, take off your clothes down to your boxers and lay them on the porch and go take your ass in the bath. And I'm like, Ma, I'm clean. I showered before I went to school. And I'm like, my friend's house is clean too. She said, I ain't asking all that. Just do what I say. So I do it, right? And I'm in my boxers, so I walk to the bathroom, and then I turn on the shower. And she's like, bitch, I didn't say the shower. I said the bath. And I'm like, Ma, I hate baths because for me, I've always been a shower hoe. I don't like the notion of just sitting in your own filth. I know you can shower first and then bathe later. It's just not for me. So I run the bath water. I'm sitting in the tub. She gets a cup of salt, throws it in there, and she says, wash up now. So I do it. When I tell y'all, my mom made sure I was clean. And she threw out my clothes, and I was pissed because I had an Echo Unlimited shirt, and I didn't get name brand shit often. Fast forward many years later, I go up to my mom, and I'm like, girl, you was trying to cleanse me for shit I didn't even know about back then. And I never even think to tell my mom it was a Ouija board because old school black parents don't play that shit. I would have never been able to go to nobody's house. And the reason why I just love my mom, because she's like, long story short, she's like, when you got in, I could tell something was opened around you. And she's like, even though nothing was technically on you, with the right senses, you can sense when some shit's been opened around you. She said, sometimes it's not enough to not touch it. Sometimes you just have to take yourself out of the situation. For an example, if you're in a room with somebody and you're wearing a mask, but they still sneeze, there's a good chance that the germs sometimes could still get to you and make you sick. It won't happen for everybody, but the germs still do travel and sometimes attach themselves. You gotta think of the same way with spirituality and occult items. They're good for some, they don't work for others. They do bad shit for some, they do good shit for others. But she said, that's some shit you keep your bitch ass away from. And I said, yes, ma'am. And now over I would say, 20 years later, I will say, if I'm ever around somebody that has one, that's all right for them. However, I'm gonna just respectfully leave because...
Let's talk about why I tell people to not play with Ouija boards. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and a lot of the time on my page, I talk about other people's experiences. However, I have a lot of my own. And if you've been here for a long time, then you've probably heard the story, or if you listen to any of the podcasts that I'm on, you've probably heard this story. But I think it's important to revisit it because I am a very strong advocate on not messing with that thing specifically. And it's because of my experience. And before I get comments flooding into my everything, I know I should have listened to my mom, okay? I know that now. But let's get into it. When I was a freshman in high school, I and my friend decided to make a Ouija board and play it in my room. You may be asking yourself, why did you make it? Because I've come to find out that when you make things with intention, it is worse. And if y'all are unaware, Toys R Us, when it was a thing, you could buy a Ouija board at Toys R Us. You can buy Ouija boards at a lot of toy stores or novelty stores, which is very scary in retrospect, but I digress. So, this person I was around had already experienced a lot of things with ghosts. I had only seen one, and I was almost certain that it was just a family member. So we shut off the lights. I had this little table sitting over there, and we put the Ouija board, I put the planchette on, we lit a candle, and we put a small piece of silver on the corner. And we're asking dumb questions like, who are you? How old are you? You know, whatever. And the planchette is moving, but it feels so strong that I'm convinced it's her pushing it. And it's answering normally, like I don't remember the answers to that, but I do remember the answer to this one. I got fed up with the planchette moving so quickly that I asked the board something that my friend wouldn't know. And I proceeded to ask it, if you're so real, what is my grandfather's middle name? So when my grandfather passed, I am almost certain that we did not put his middle name on his obituary because nobody knew that. And that was like something within my family that we did not share, etc. There were 5 letters in his middle name. The planchette stopped moving when I asked the question. We sat there for probably 15 seconds, and I was like, this is fake. I knew you were pushing it. And as I'm saying that, it starts moving. It goes to the first letter, and it's right. It goes to the second letter, and it is right. It goes to the third letter, and as it's heading for the third, I take my hands off. I know, big no-no. And I am absolutely horrified. It finished spelling his middle name, and afterwards, I put my hands back on, we said goodbye, I blew the candle out, and we just went on our merry way because that was too much. Now, the backyard at my parents' house is set up where we have a lot of shrubbery and tall trees. And after our session with the Ouija board, we decided to do something that we thought would be fun, which is taking photos in my backyard. And it's important to note that the room that I had at my parents' house in the basement, The window in the room faced out towards the backyard. And as we were taking photos against the shrubbery, I had my back faced away from the window. My mom is the only one home, and as I'm taking pictures of my friend, we hear, we both turn around, we don't see any movement. My parents' room was right above where I lived, so I'm convinced it's my mom messing with me. I run inside, I go upstairs, I fly through her door, and she is asleep. I wake her up, and she does the mom thing where she's like, you know, and I'm like, why did you scare us? She had no idea what I was talking about. And for a long time, I was like, no, I know it was you because you told us not to do that and blah, 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 blah. Ratted myself out. And she immediately was like, I did not mess with you. And I will get into how I know it wasn't her. The following month after this happened was the scariest month I can possibly think that I had activity in my house. So a week after we played with this board, my sister burst into my room at 6 a.m. and she's like, I have something to talk to you about and I don't know what it was. Okay, weird, because my sister usually sleeps until noon and she's up at 6 a.m. willingly, and she says she has something to tell me because she doesn't know what it was. I immediately have a weird feeling. She begins to tell me how she essentially astral projected out of her body and was looking at herself sleep through her window, which is on a slope at my parents' house. And she saw something leaning over her body. When she woke up, my dog was gristled up, teeth showing, snarling, growling, and barking at the corner in the middle of the night. And I compartmentalized that, right? I didn't tell her about the board. I didn't tell her what we did. I didn't tell her anything. I just said, you know, this is probably just a nightmare. I think it was just whatever, because I didn't want to scare her. The week after that, so we're 2 weeks post Ouija board session, and my parents are out of town in Colorado, and my sister is at my cousin's house staying the night. So I was home alone, and there's a little note to me as a person. I don't like the dark. And this particular night, I felt so comfortable walking in the dark. It was really weird. The only light source, I was shutting all the lights off for the night. The only light source was coming from my room. So there's the big doorway of just light. Next to my room is this built-in bar area. I'm walking through the dark. I'm pretty much in the doorway of light at this point. And I hear, whoa. Whoa. That was really weird. I hear, hey, right next to my ear. Ran into my room, barricaded the door, and I did not come out until my sister came home the next day. And don't get me wrong, I've heard weird stuff at my house before. I have never heard anything or anyone talk to me, and I was the only one home. And the last thing that happened to me was not necessarily a situation. I always felt like there was someone in my room. I always felt like there was someone either standing outside my window, like my sister dreamt about her doing, or I always felt like there was someone in my closet. And yes, that's a very common thing, but it was so prevalent that I felt like I was going to walk into my closet and there was going to be a human being there. And at the time, I started working at a church and I started praying, and slowly but surely it went away. And I have not experienced anything in my house that was relative to that since. I'm also a firm believer that if you are trying to mess with these things and try to provoke these things, they will catch you off guard. I am a firm believer of that. So I've had experiences since then that were related to paranormal activity, but nothing related to that. And I know because I could feel it. So that is why I don't mess with those anymore. I don't think I'll ever touch another one ever. And in my story about the museum, that is what made me extremely nauseous, and I'm convinced it was because there was something attached to the board. But just do anything else. There are so many different things that you can do to try and see activity. Don't do that. I'm also a firm believer that those just open up whatever door to wherever and whoever wants to answer first. Like the talk to me hand, that is what I think of. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.